Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the book launch of Home is Where We Are, a memoir by Prof Wang Gungwu, written with his wife, Margaret Wang. My name's Peter Schopert. I'm the NUS Press, and we're very proud to be the originating publisher of Home is Where We Are. I'll be your host for this evening. This online event is organized by NUS Press with the LKY School of Public Policy at NUS, National University of Singapore. It's our great regret that only a small group can be here with us in the room with Prof Wang, but within the premises of the LKY School here at the Bukit Timah campus of NUS. It's the place where so many of the events recounted in the book took place. But perhaps it's a small compensation that while we can't be together in the same room, we are able to welcome many of you from well-wishers, friends, and family from around the world, from Australia, Malaysia, Hong Kong. So welcome to those of you joining us on Zoom and on Facebook Live. We appreciate your coming along to celebrate, to greet Prof Wang, and to wish him a happy birthday as well. As it happens, we're celebrating more than just one book launch. We're also celebrating with friends from the Chinese University of Hong Kong Press, who have recently published Home is Not Here and Home is Where We Are in traditional Chinese editions. We're very pleased to have partnered with them to bring Prof Wang's memoir to Chinese-speaking audiences. You'll meet some of them later in the presentation. Here's what we have in store for you. Soon, Professor Chye, the president of NUS, will welcome you and will give his greetings to Prof Wang on behalf of all of us at NUS to formally commence proceedings. We will then launch the book virtually and give you a small preview of some of the content. The home that Prof Wang and Margaret built where they were was always based around the intellectual and social life of the university. And we have a number of specially invited guests, friends who will say a few words based on their shared experience with Prof Wang in this university context, whether at the University of Malaya or indeed some of the other universities where Prof Wang has studied and worked with such distinction. Once we've heard from our discussants, we'll ask Prof Wang to say a few words about the book. I'm afraid time doesn't allow us to have a live Q&A on Facebook, but we'll be certain to relay any questions or thoughts you want to leave for us on Facebook to Prof Wang, and we'll find a way to get those back to you as well. And then if you stay with us, not only will we have a chance to raise a toast to Prof Wang, who recently celebrated milestone birthday, but we'll also share a special discount code that will allow you to purchase the book at a special price from our NUS Press web store. So that's the rundown. Let's get started. It's a very great honor for me to welcome Professor Chye, the president of NUS, to the podium to officially kick things off. Prof Tan.
Thank you. Professor Wang Gungwu, University Professor, National University of Singapore. Professor Danny Quah, Dean of the LKY School of Public Policy. Professor Kishore Mahbubani, Distinguished Fellow at the Asia Research Institute and Dean Emeritus of the LKY School. Mr. Peter Schopert, Director NUS Press, distinguished guests and friends on Zoom and Facebook. Thank you for joining us. It's fitting that we are launching Professor Wang's memoir, Home is Where We Are, here on the NUS Bukit Timah campus, which was, of course, the first campus of the University of Malaya, one of the originating institutions from which NUS traces her roots. Professor Wang Gungwu is an eminent historian who has written prolifically on China and her overseas diaspora. He has also made immense contributions to NUS, including as chairman of the governing board of the East Asia Institute from 2007 to 2018, and also founding chairman of the LKY School of Public Policy from 2004 to 2017. Home is Where We Are is the follow-up volume of Professor Wang's memoirs. The first, Home is Not Here, chronicles his childhood and early adulthood in Southeast Asia and China. I'm also very pleased to note that the Chinese editions of Home is Not Here and Home is Where We are also being celebrated today, published by the Chinese University of Hong Kong Press. The second volume offers a vivid depiction of Professor Wang's time as a student here on this very campus. The book opens with Professor Wang's return to Malaya as a young man after less than a year of studies at National Central University in Nanjing, now Nanjing University, as the campus had to be closed due to the civil war in China. It was on the Bukit Timah campus that young undergraduate Wang Gungwu was inspired to study literature, economics, and finally, history. During that era of great optimism, he and his classmates discussed their thoughts, hopes, and plans for the future of Malaya, the independent nation they knew was coming, even if its shape was still not yet clear. The campuses at UM, both in Singapore and at Petaling Jaya, were the setting for a generation of students to witness and in some instances participate in the historic drama of independence and nationhood for Singapore and Malaysia. In the book, Professor Wang would recall his encounters with historic figures such as Mr. Lee Kuan Yew, Dr. Goh Keng Swee, and Dr. Mahathir Mohamad. It is therefore altogether fitting the Lee Kuan Yew School of Public Policy is now situated at this historic Bukit Timah campus. I'm confident that the new generation of graduate students at LKY SPP are driven by the same motivations as the UM undergraduates Professor Wang and Margaret wrote about: the strong passion to create a positive impact on the world, to serve their countries, and to be part of the most urgent debates on the future. It is said that our time in university can be among the most formative of our lives, and not just in terms of professional development. One of the most important decisions a young man or woman can make is that of their lifetime partner, a choice that is arguably much more consequential to future happiness than the cost of study or one's first job. In Professor Wang's case, his choice was made here, on the Bukit Timah campus. After giving a talk on the poet William Wordsworth to fellow students, Professor Wang first noticed Margaret, the bright and vivacious undergraduate who was to become his wife. The recounting of their courtship, marriage, and enduring union would be one of the highlights of this insightful and deeply personal memoir. Sadly, as many of you know, Margaret passed away a few short months ago. We all feel her absence very deeply. And Professor Wang, on behalf of NUS, we offer our deepest condolences. The book contains many wonderful passages where Margaret, in her own words, shares her memories and her warmth, kindness, and intelligence clearly shines through. Among the most fascinating aspects of this book is the way it showed the intellectual journey and career development of a scholar, intertwined with the journey of a young man learning about love and family life. The book demonstrates clearly, in many instances, personal and professional paths can be deeply interlocked, and how a supportive and flourishing home environment can be instrumental in supporting a demanding yet highly fulfilling profession and career. Home is Where We Are is a book that recalls an extraordinary time in history where Singapore and Malaysia were on the cusp of independence and of a young generation eager to seize the future with both hands. It is also a deeply personal story that echoes with everlasting themes such as family, friendship, and the deep bonds of love. Professor Wang, congratulations on the publication of this follow-up volume of your memoirs. And we offer our deepest appreciation to you for not only sharing your experiences of a significant period in our nation's history, but also in offering glimpses of your personal life with Margaret. The book is a delightful read that succeeds at being both historically illuminating and wonderfully intimate. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. Tan, for that very wonderful speech and kind welcome, and for your presence this occasion. Ladies and gentlemen, the time has come to launch the book. As we are in Zoom world, we won't have a launch mechanism. We'll show a video to launch the book. So, cue video. There you go. The book is launched. Here it is. The book is now available in Singapore and in Malaysia. It'll be available in Europe, Australia, America at the beginning of next year, as will the global ebook edition. So congratulations, Prof Wang. I'm very happy to say also that the Chinese edition is in the shops already in Singapore and Malaysia as well. So before asking for a few comments and memories of Prof Wang from some of our speakers, we'd like to present a short video that is made up of quotes from the book and some images, some from the book, some sent to us by Prof Wang's children from the family album. I think this will give you an idea of at least one aspect of the book, and it's also a tribute to the book's co-author, Margaret Wang. Thank you again to Lan Wang for her help in putting that video together. As I said, the quotes are all from the book, and the music is Edward Elgar's Salle d'Humour, which seemed appropriate. We'd like to turn now to a number of friends, former students and colleagues of Prof Wang, to share with us some of their thoughts, memories, and so on. We're actually starting with a friend whose features in the first volume, in Home is Not Here, a fellow student at National Central University, now emeritus professor at the same institution, Professor Ma Jiaqi. We'll follow with messages from Professor Anthony Reed, Professor Lee Kam-hing, Professor Ambrose King, and Professor Ezra Vogel. And we'll conclude with a congratulations video from the Chinese University of Hong Kong Press, who've helped us put together some of this. Cheers.
刚武兄也是这一年进中央大学。
同一年进来。
所以当时中央大学的校友会很多。我们两个都是中央大学泰州同学会的成员。泰州同学会有些活动，我们两个都参加，因此我们跟龚武兄很熟悉。后来这个机缘很奇怪，后来他也认识了我也学历史的，这个是因为学历史的关系呢，有一些往来，所以他在港大校长身上，我曾经去看，到香港去看过他。后来他到了澳大利亚，我到墨尔本的时候也见到一次面。后来听说他退休以后就回到这个新加坡来，所以我跟他同校关系。同乡关系，而且同行关系。他父亲时候就到海外去了，他没有去过泰州，所以他有一次来的时候，我特地陪他到泰州去看一下子，到故乡去看一下子。
他是这个
30年
出生。
30年，
对，
他比我小，
比您小3岁，
比小3岁，对。
然后10月9号是他的生日。
请你们代为祝福他生日健康长寿。
Let me begin by congratulating you, Gungwu, not only on reaching the fabled milestone of 80 years and 10, but also, and especially for these 2 excellent memoirs, as one who's trying to follow the same path of making sense of the past and what did it all mean. I'm particularly excited to read them. I've been reading a few such memoirs to see how it's done, and this is really a model of intelligence, of honesty, and of fairness to yourself and all those around you. I think it's a great achievement, not the least, indeed, of your very many great achievements. When looking back on the 1960s, we partly shared in Kuala Lumpur, I can't help thinking it was a golden time, not just for you and I, but for the country, because not only we, but the country was young. And as is the case with youth, there's so much that's promised, that's unclear, that could happen, but maybe won't. So many decisions to make, junctions in the path to choose between, and it's easy to feel that you and I made the decisions or were lucky or something than Malaysia was in some of those things that happened in the 1960s. Our marriages both turned out pretty well, and I'm immensely grateful for that, as I'm sure I know you are. But it was, of course, clouded, as it was bound to be, as youth is, I suppose, by those 2 dramatic events in 1965 and 1969. In 1965, I'd just arrived, and for me it was all just mind-bogglingly amazing, you know, this place where everything seemed to happen, and the good fortune of being in the middle of it You were far more knowledgeable and committed and involved. And for you already 1965 and the departure of Singapore from Malaysia was a critical blow, and it already was clear, I think, to you, if not to me, that it wasn't going to be the Malaysia that you'd hoped for and committed yourself to. I do want to just say one word of protest about the new book, the wonderful new book, and the decisions you took, one of which you were busy taking on page 262, if I'm not mistaken, where you're offered these three lovely professorships and have to choose between them, and as against staying in Malaysia and committing to being a Malaysianist in Malaysia and leading a certain enterprise there, which you were doing so ably. And you conclude, well, you say you concluded, I'm not sure if I quite believe it, that, well, obviously here I'm offered 3 chairs all in the China field and nothing in the Southeast Asia field. So obviously I'm much more appreciated and admired in the China field than I am in the Southeast Asia field. Nonsense, Gungwu, absolute nonsense. You were wonderfully appreciated and admired in the Southeast Asia field. It's just that it was so tiny. It would hardly existed, just struggling into being. There were no chairs. There were no chairs to offer you. No people like Patrick Fitzgerald or others, you could succeed. Everything was new. And had there been a chair of Southeast Asian history, of course you'd have been a shoo-in, but there weren't. And the idea that you had, I think you say something outrageous, that you have achieved nothing of significance in Southeast Asia, that's absolute nonsense. The Nanhai trade and all the other work you'd done was path-breaking and changed the field. I wish you'd done more of it, but the paths that we all chose turned out not so badly, and I congratulate you on a terrific life. Thanks very much, Gungwu.
Professor Wang Gungwu had just become head of the history department at the University of Malaya, the year that I signed up to do history as my major. I was the fourth batch of 47 history students. Most of us had come from outstation to be in Petaling Jaya, the new suburb where the brand new campus of the just established university was located. To us, everything there seemed new and young, including the department head, Professor Wang, who then was just 33 years of age. Prof Wang captured this sense of newness in the university and in the country in his memoir, Home is Where We Are. Along with this sense of newness was also an awareness, even then, that we were all witnesses to history being made with the formation of a new nation, Malaysia, that year. And Prof Wang, in his book, reflected on the challenges of nation building, especially to the department under him and the university. As students guided by Prof Wang and his colleagues, we became even more conscious of how relevant the study of history was to understand the momentous events happening around us. There were the Indonesian confrontation, the Vietnam War, and closer home, there were the heated political debates on defining Malaysia, to which the Arts Faculty and History Department hosted a number of forums, participated even by Lee Kuan Yew. Prof Wang encouraged discussions on discovering and rewriting of Malaysian history in the new nation. And there were the weekly seminars, field trips, forums, and publications. Prof Wang was an inspiring and greatly admired lecturer, and we recalled how gracious and generous he always was. He made time for students, from freshies to postgraduate students. I remember one retreat to the university's Ulu Gombak Field Studies Center, where Prof Wang, together with his staff and students, engaged in discussion on history and politics with Musa Hitam, who later became Deputy Prime Minister. Many of us continued to regard Prof Wang as mentor, and Prof Li Poping, in conversations with those of us who studied under Prof Wang, would refer to him only as Guru. In July 2017, when Prof Wang gave an evening public lecture at the University of Malaya on the great powers in Southeast Asia, more than 600 people attended, probably the largest number ever at a seminar or public lecture. Many in Malaysia still claim Prof Wang as one of their own and regard him as one of the finest scholars in the country.
跟我今天我特别要为你的90大寿来祝贺。我祝贺你呢，松柏长青，健康快乐。时间过得好快，我记得我第一次认识你的时候，是你在那个 Australia 主持一个国际会议，后来我们到你 Canberra 家里去的。一晃呢，现在差不多可能30年了。哎呀，时间太快！今天你90岁，我85岁，我们两个可以说是真正的老朋友了。当然，我今天特别要趁这个机会对你这个最近荣获这个唐奖的汉学奖表示祝贺。我想这是很实至名归的。我都觉得你这次得奖呢，几乎可以说是为这个汉学做了一个更好的一个、比较完整的一个定义跟范畴。因为本来汉学变成一个非常难驾驭开阔的一个范畴。同时在这个时候呢，我特别也借这个机会表达我对你的夫人 Margaret 的敬意跟怀念，因为我见过她很多次了。最近呢，我刚刚读完了中文大学出版社把你翻成中文的，就是《新安即是家》，这是你跟 Margaret 两个人合作的。所以你们两位我每次见到你们两个都是在一起的。你们两个精神呢，始终都是在一起。我相信就是今天，他在天上看到你，也许他也看到我们两个，都会替你祝福的。所以我今天呢，再强调一次，祝你这个90岁的生日，祝你颂柏长春，健康快乐。香港的金耀基老朋友，谢谢。
Gungwu, I want to congratulating you on joining us 90-year-olds. It's been a wonderful thing to have been born the same year you were, and to have a chance to get your views occasionally as we've gone through life and seen so many changes in the world. As I remember, the first time I met you was in Chicago in the 1960s still, at a Tangzhou and Hepingdi conference. And you were already the brilliant young historian and in your early 30s. And Fairbank realized that this man, Wang Gungwu, was a brilliant young scholar and wanted to include you in his work. And I think the fact that you grew up with a father who tutored you in Chinese classics, so that you were really a part of China. And as a Westerner who is trying to understand China, I've always valued your views. And I was glad that over the years we've occasionally met at international conferences. I remember one time we had lunch at the Association of Asian Studies. And you were kind enough when you were chancellor Vice Chancellor at the University of Hong Kong, you and Margaret, to have Charlotte and me in for a meal. And I felt very privileged to have known you. And then when you went on to Singapore, I always thought of Lee Kuan Yew as probably the brightest of the leaders of the world in terms of strategy and understanding of what different countries are doing. And I always thought that after you were Vice Chancellor, that he brought you on as a kind of a wise advisor so that he could keep up with the world and have a deep understanding of Chinese history, since he had been about 4 or 5 generations out of China and was a Hakka, and that you were much deeper into real Chinese history. And what I especially enjoy about you is you've been so generous and kindly as you've held all your positions. So it's not just that you had a very deep knowledge of China and a lot of wisdom about China and the West and Southeast Asia, but that you've been so generous and so kind in sharing it with the rest of us. So a salute to you, and welcome to being in your 90s.
Wang Gungwu 教授。
Our final commentator will be Professor Kishore Mahbubani, who worked, a distinguished fellow at the Asia Research Institute, who worked with Prof Wang for many years as founding director of the Lee Kuan Yew School. We're very pleased to have him in the room with us, together with his wife, Anne. Kishore.
This book, a memoir by Margaret and Gungwu. Sadly, as Danny Quah noted, Margaret is not here to celebrate its publication, but her voice comes alive again in this book. She describes well her first date with Gungwu. After watching the movie Macbeth on Beach Road, the two students went to a coffee shop. Gungwu had a beard then. This beard caused trouble, and this is how Margaret describes it. Quote, "Anyway, a huge Sikh confronted us when we were drinking our coffee and very aggressively asked whether Gungwu, a Chinese man, was trying to mock the Sikhs with his beard. Fortunately, Gungwu diffused the situation by speaking calmly to the man and even invited him to sit with us for a while," unquote. Margaret adds, "I was quite frightened as I was afraid he would hit us. It was certainly an exciting end to a first date." And Gungwu was afraid that Margaret wouldn't come with him again because he's such a dangerous guy to be with. But Gungwu's calm response captures the quintessential Gungwu. Calm, intelligent, always unflappable. And this story is one of many insightful stories in this book and its predecessor volume, Home is Not Here. I have absolutely no doubt that future historians will mine Gungwu's books to find out, for example, how the distinctive soul, the identity of Malaya emerged from the 1950s. For me, the multiracial list of names of his classmates and friends on this Bukit Timah campus in 1949 captured well the unique DNA of what I call the soul of Malaya, with names like Beda Lim, Jack De Silva, George and James Putucherry, Dola Majid, Syed Mahadza, and Tyagarajan, an ethnic Chinese brought up by a Tamil family. This diversity, remarkable diversity, also reminded me, Gungwu, of my time in this Bukit Timah campus. And this is why this volume, this biography, autobiography of Gungwu is so important. His work shine a bright flashlight on the uncertain origins of the distinctive identities that have emerged in both Malaysia and Singapore. Actually, in Singapore's case, the bigger challenge we face today is not economic, but social. The big question is, what essentially is the soul of Singapore? And anyone who wants to understand the origins of this soul must read these two books by Gungwu and read them very carefully. Thank you, Gungwu and Margaret, for gifting us with these insightful books. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Prof Wang, I'm afraid it's your turn to answer and to respond to some of these messages, please.
Thank you all very much. I must confess I'm greatly moved by what you put together for this occasion, and to choose this campus to have this book launched. This very building itself, of course, is where it all began. And I was very much reminded of the fact that it was almost exactly 71 years ago that I attended the opening of this university in October of 1949, having brought the two colleges together to make the University of Malaya. And I remember at that time, because I didn't know anything about Singapore, I wondered why the University of Malaya, of a new country called the Federation of Malaya, was located in the colony of Singapore. So that was how I started. And you can see it has been a puzzle ever since. It's not an easy story to explain to my grandchildren how it all began. The other thing, of course, is quite simply, I came here really as a total innocent. I had never paid much attention to Malaya or Singapore or anywhere in the region. I was brought up to be a Chinese, to return to China. And when that didn't work out, and I came back, the opportunity to come to the University of Malaya as a brand new university in this potentially new country called Malaya was a strange possibility. I never expected it, and I was not prepared for it, to be honest. So I really came here to learn, not only to learn at the university to pick up all the things that I needed as a student, but to learn what it was like to be part of an experiment with a new nation to be called Malaya. And it suddenly hit me that I didn't know anything about what a nation meant. And when I met my fellow students and found them all equally excited and equally, in a way, puzzled as to what this new country called Malaya will be like. But the one thing that we all thought in our innocence and youthful arrogance, that we would be part of the generation that would shape this new country called Malaya. I don't know how many of us really believed we could, but nevertheless, it was something that kept us very much excited for the years that I was here. So that was how it all began, and literature was my love, and I thought that my friends who believed that one day this new nation should have its own literature was a good way to start. And I sort of made a start. And you can see, without really knowing what it meant, where we were going, except that we were going somewhere interesting, somewhere exciting, something new, and something that we could all belong to one day. So that's how it looked to me at the time. At the same time, I learned something else, that I had to discover what it meant to be a young nation. And when I met Margaret, I was pleasantly surprised that she, who was greatly in love with English literature, was equally interested in being a Malayan, except that she saw it from the viewpoint of someone who grew up in Singapore, and was very different from mine. Coming from a small town, Ipoh, in the northern part of the country, and knowing very, very little about the country or its history, and knowing even less about Singapore, I was discovering Singapore through Margaret's eyes as well, as someone from Singapore looking at the future of Malaya. So that sort of set us going. There were many other reasons why we were attracted to each other, but among those were that we were both, in a way, discovering ourselves as potential citizens of a new country, and both really wondering where this will take us. I see Margaret and I developing our relationship out of this quest, as it were, a kind of self-discovering quest to find out what it meant to grow into this country as it was growing around us. And to be honest, quite frankly, I was astonished how Margaret took up the idea of Malaya even more enthusiastically than I did in some ways, because to her too, she had come from China, as she was born there, and was equally excited by the idea of becoming a member of a new nation. And in a funny sort of way, we were finding out what it meant to be a nation. I had never really thought about the word before, except that the Chinese had discovered nationalism a generation or two before us and were excited by that. But that was in China. It had nothing to do with us in this country, which was a very mixed little territory. One quite often forgets how mixed it was. 3 little colonies of Penang, Malacca, and Singapore, 4 federated Malay states which had special relations with the British, and 5 others who had very unique relationship, each of them very unique relationship with the British, and all not really meshing together all that well through the years before the Japanese War. And out of it all, because of the Japanese occupation, because decolonization had to follow after the end of the Second World War, because of circumstances completely outside of the region and beyond our control, we were trying to invent something called a new nation. At least we were told, encouraged almost, by the British as well as by those of our elders to try and do something to make all this miscellaneous bits and pieces into a nation that we could all be proud of. So in a funny sort of way, it was not only the start of a University of Malaya, it was a start of a dream of making a new country. And honestly, the next 20 years of our lives, Margaret as well as mine, we were engaged consciously or subconsciously in this very curious experience of making ourselves feel fully at home in this new country. And as I was reminded by comments by my friends and those who have at least had a look at the book, it was a very difficult journey. There were so many ups and downs. Looking back, I'm not sure I knew exactly what we were doing, but I do know one thing. It was a very exciting time, And we learned a great deal, not only about our neighborhood and about what it meant among ourselves, who we were, all the different peoples who made up this set of territories that were brought together as one country, but also going through additional changes in our boundaries, adding East Malaysia to be Malaysia, and all the tremendous difficulties that each territory felt about these changes. It is hard to summarize all that. All that I can say now is that it was well worthwhile, because I think every one of us who went through that discovered something of ourselves with that experience. And out of it all, I think we have become better people. Each have gone different ways. I have very few of my classmates left, but I know that each one of them, when we still kept in touch, each one of them had their own story to tell, and they were all very exciting stories. And my only regret is that more of them have not written about their story the way I tried to write mine. And I have to say at the end to say that I did this thanks to Margaret. It was Margaret who started to tell her story to our children, and it was her story that led our children to press me to tell mine. And along the way, in the last couple of decades, we finally got round to telling our story together. And this is something that I have much to be thankful for, and I'm only sorry she's not here to be with me on this special occasion. Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much, Prof Wang. I think it's fitting then that we can toast Prof Wang, and the toast will be led by his daughter, Lan, joining us by Zoom. Over to you, Lan.
Hello, everyone. I'm speaking to you from lockdown in Melbourne. So I'm glad I could do it at least from this distance. I'm honoured to have been asked to make a toast to my father in celebration of his 90th birthday. I'm speaking on behalf of my brother Ming and sister May, our spouses and children, and the rest of the Wang and Lim families scattered around the world. As you all know, my father has enjoyed a very distinguished academic career, and over the decades, he has quite rightly attained the admiration and respect of thousands of students, academics, politicians, diplomats, bureaucrats, publishers, business people, and even royalty. But to us, he has mostly been just our dad. Incredibly kind and soft-spoken, always interesting and educated to talk to, and always interested in the world around us in a way that has instilled in us a love of learning and inquiry. He's measured and balanced in his views, in turn teaching us not to judge without having all the facts. His modesty is particularly impressive. Indeed, when we were young, we would have known little of his achievements had it not been for our mum regularly keeping us abreast of his many activities. Mealtimes in the Wang family were often loud and boisterous, given that our mum came from a large and noisy family which rubbed off onto us. Dad would, however, usually stay quiet during our vigorous discussions until a pivotal point needed to be made, at which stage we all stopped and turned as Dad said his piece and we absorbed an important lesson. Some other childhood memories include playing cricket in the backyard and going on long driving holidays. In Australia, we visited its famous beaches and its snowy peaks. And in Europe, we hopped into our little red car and explored the northern parts of the UK as well as large swathes of Western Europe. Dad's insatiable curiosity led us literally down garden paths, including an epic journey to try and find the famous Keukenhof Gardens just outside Amsterdam without a map. He also tried in vain to teach us Mandarin, but was unable to make gains against the relentlessly monolingual landscape that was Australia in the 1960s and 70s. In later years, as our families set out on their own adventures, which split us up over different continents, we treasured every opportunity to get together. Despite the distances and lack of email or Zoom, we managed to meet each other usually every year or so, and kept in touch via snail mail. We watched Dad's career expand even more as he tackled challenges at Hong Kong University. But we thought after that he would move into genteel academic semi-retirement once he moved to Singapore. That was not to be, of course, and we could only admire his energy and commitment as he continued in various active positions at the university throughout his 70s and well into his 80s. We are so grateful that he's in good health and that he's still able to contribute so much to the Singaporean and wider academic communities, and we're sure that he will continue to do so for many years to come. Our only regret is that our dear mother, who died only 2.5 months ago, is not here to celebrate with us Dad's 90th birthday and the launch of their co-authored book, Home is Where We Are. We children are so lucky to have had them as our role models, teachers and guides throughout our lives, and our mother is much missed. We're sorry we can't be there in person to celebrate this event with our father, but we're looking forward to being able to visit very soon. In the meantime, we're delighted that he has good friends and colleagues in Singapore to observe this occasion with him in person. Please charge your glasses and make a toast to our father on the occasion of his 90th birthday and the launch of Home is Where We Are. Congratulations and Ganbei.
Ganbei. Beautiful.
Thank you again, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us for this very special occasion. I'd like to thank NUS President Chye for being here, gracing this occasion. To Dean Danny Quah and the wonderful team, the LKY School, who've put this event together, co-hosting this event. To Chinese University of Hong Kong team for helping us with the videos and joining with us for this event. To Professor Kishore Mahbubani, to Anne for joining us here in the room, to Lan and the family for helping us, but above all to everyone joining us online. We're really sorry you can't be here with us, but thank you for joining us in this manner. I wouldn't be a publisher if I didn't conclude by saying that the book is on sale now and that we have a special discount for those of you with us. The code is WG Launch Day. It should be appearing on the Facebook page. Thank you again, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.